There was a there's a quote that I heard you say, I guess not a quote, but a line that you said in a recent podcast that I absolutely loved. You said that after a while, you stop having problems because you thought about them so many times. And I told that to a friend recently, and I thought, this is so like one of the things I post on my Instagram story like weekly is just take a walk, no headphones, no nothing, and just listen to your thoughts and allow yourself to be with yourself. And I'm curious how that's shaped your relationship with yourself because I can imagine it's massive.
I love that. I think that's great advice. I'd recommend that to everyone. It's hard to, I don't think a lot of people follow through on it. I'm sure you say that
Yeah.
and, put it out there, but I doubt a lot of people actually do walk every day or often. But yeah, I think it's really transformative. I think walking is just so fundamental to who we are as
Mhm.
humans. And I also think it's really easy to get into this sort of hyper efficiency mode that every moment should be optimized and you need to become this automaton of efficiency and maximize every little ounce of everything. And really, that's not going to make you happy ultimately. I mean, it's useful to be productive and it's useful to be efficient and get things done, but we probably need to embrace our humanity a little more, and walking is a great way to do that. Like you said, after about a year and a half into walking, when I was in the deserts of Peru and Chile, I had this thought that I had thought all the thoughts
Mhm.
and I had nothing left to resolve. And that was a direct result of just walking and turning over my life, my influences, and my idiosyncrasies for so long that they sort of just became things. There's a few ways I thought about it. Well, the first one, walking is kind of like you have this big ball of dirt beside you that you're rolling alongside as you go. These are your thoughts, and slowly a little bit of dirt falls off, falls off, falls off, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until there's nothing left. And then the other way, which is probably a more beautiful way to think about it, was kind of like garden,
Mhm.
where you're on your hands and knees and you're weeding, and metaphorically, you're weeding your mind and you're weeding these thoughts. And eventually, when I got down to Peru, I looked around and I had no weeds left to pull, and the garden was clean. And when I began in New Jersey and down and walked down to Texas, I didn't even realize how filled with weeds the garden was. You just go through life, you're on whatever track you're on, and you're doing the best you can. And you don't really have time to reflect on what you need to resolve. But
Mhm.
then when you go out there and you're walking and you give yourself space to listen to yourself and listen to your thought, you realize, oh man, there's actually a million things that I need to think about and listen to why I'm driven in this way and why I do this little thing and why did we break up and why did this relationship fall through and why does this relationship work? And it's all those little things that you realize that you just need to think about a little bit. And maybe, and some bigger things, maybe you need to think about a lot and you need to spend a lot of time. But ultimately, if you do this enough, if you go for a 2 year walk, say, it is really tremendously calming and satisfying and reassuring in a certain way to yourself. Where I'm writing this piece right now about just sitting comfortably in a place, and this is something that you gain from traveling. Is say you're sitting down for chai in India with a family, or in Mexico, or you're in Colombia and you get invited into someone's home and maybe they only speak a little bit of English, you only speak a little bit of Spanish, and you get put in this situation where you have to sit with a group of people that you don't have a common language with, or maybe you're the stranger, and so
Mhm.
you have to be comfortable with yourself. And walking is a really good way to build that comfort with yourself, because you have to be good company with yourself and you have to resolve these contradictions and these idiosyncrasies. And so if you walk those 2 years, you become really good company to yourself. I think that's the main thing. You spend a lot of time gardening and you realize your limitations and the things you're good at and things you're not great at, all that. And it just takes a lot of time and it's very subtle.
Yeah, it's something that I've for as long as I could remember. as a child, like if I couldn't sleep at night, I was going for hour-long walks, 2 in the morning kind of thing, like just that's just what I felt like I was supposed to do. You bring up a memory for me when I was in Costa Rica earlier this year. I was on a bus ride home, couldn't leave my situation. It was hot as hell. I know your shoes were like the soles were burning off of your feet when you were there. It was a really like I had no water, no food, no nothing, and I had to sit in a bus for about 4 hours till I got back. And there was this moment when I realized I literally can do absolutely nothing to change the situation. So I might as well take advantage of the situation and just try to find solace in myself. And I assume for you with walking, finding a place to sleep at night, that was something that you had to get really good at. How has your relationship with solitude kind of built? And do you feel that's something that has really allowed you to even just get through the walking in itself?
Yeah, I think fortunately I kind of fall like in between the spectrum of extroverted and introverted, where I think my personality lends itself pretty well to being alone and then also, having sudden interactions with people. But also, yeah, I mean, like you did when you're sitting in that bus trying to just accept the situation, there's a lot of that when walking. There's days where you're just out in the heat and look, that's how it is, and you're going to have to deal with it. And there's other days you're pushing through the snow in Wyoming or Kansas, wherever, and that's the situation. It is what it is. And I think what helped me was, definitely, being good company to yourself, but also this real understanding and acceptance that nothing is permanent. And you get this great experience of that when you're walking and when you're out exposed to the elements, because it's easy to know that, and it's easy to be in your house and writing something and it just not be working that day and telling yourself that, yeah, it'll be better the next day and things will go right the next day. But it's sort of just an intellectual thought. But when you're out there walking, you really experience these shifts in the climate, in the weather, in your mood, in who you run into all the time. And so, say when I was crossing the Sierra Madre Mountains in Mexico, and it was just 4 days of torrential rain, and then I'm on the other side, and it's dry and windy, and it's fine. And I'm in Costa Rica, and it's super hot and humid and miserable. And then I get into Panama, and I'm up in the mountains a little bit and it's a little bit cooler. And then there's other weeks where I don't see anyone and nothing interesting happens. And I'm just so bored out of my mind. And then the next week I run into five, six, seven amazing people, have some amazing meals. And even the same thing happens with my mood. I noticed when you have all this time to spend with yourself, I started to notice I would just have these 3 days where I would just hate everything. And I would just wake up just furious at the world, and everything was going to piss me off. No matter what it was, I was going to be snapping at everything. I just didn't want to deal with anything. And then about 2 weeks later, I would have another 3 days where I was on cloud nine for no reason and nothing bothered me. And so you just kind of learn that these ebbs and flows come and go naturally, and there's no avoiding it. So I think that just exposure, and I think you get this if you're going to do a hike, if you're doing the AT, if you're doing the PCT, anything like that, or even if you're just traveling to Colombia or Costa Rica and you are not able to contain everything, you're not able to protect yourself from
Mhm.
everything, you get exposure just to the world. And I think that helps you realize there's certain ebbs and flows to just life.